Hello, everybody, and welcome to another week of our conversation in our series on why Black Lives Matter. We'd like to welcome all of you and thank you for joining us. And to introduce our topic today, we're going to delve quite deeply into acceptance and what that means for us on our journey as part of the teachings of union, in that we believe that to transcend a situation, you have to love it completely, and that love requires unconditional acceptance. And so one of the things that has been coming, that's kind of led us into this conversation for this week, has been, it's a culmination of our last 2 weeks. And we believe that that energy of resistance is potentially why we have a challenge with completely accepting things and then moving through those things in order to heal what we need to heal at our core. So I'm going to open it up to the team and just get a sense of how they're feeling about this topic. But the idea is just to dive deep into the conversation and see what acceptance really means for the team, and how accepting things has allowed them to walk into peace and transcend situations that they may not have been able to transcend before. And also to highlight that walking into peace doesn't always mean that the outside has changed. It just means that we accept that certain things serve a purpose and that they have a peace for us that takes us deeper into our healing. And so that's the one thing that really stands out for me about acceptance, is looking at a situation and, as opposed to fighting it, trying to understand what the gift is for me, what's in it for me, what's there for me, because it takes me into a place of healing. And in order to go into that place of healing, I need to look. I need to take the energy to look into it. And then when I find something there, take the time to actually work on my healing. Like that, those are kind of action steps and almost formula that has served me. And so acceptance doesn't mean I have to like what's happening. It means that I can look at what's happening and find the treasure for me. But you kind of need to be quite surrendered in the space of looking. You kind of have to be surrendered in the space of not trying to control what's happening on the outside, but rather to find what's happening on the inside that is aligning to this thing that's happening on the outside, and how can I heal that piece that's happening on the inside. So yes, it's a little bit of a lengthy introduction, and I know as unionists we have been on this journey and healing, and so I think the core of it is to start at the place of, what does acceptance mean to the team? And we can just allow the conversation to flow. There's no requirement for a right or wrong answer. It's kind of just share with us where you're at in terms of the concept of acceptance.
Well, I think for me, like the concept of acceptance has been shifted in the past few days. And I'm really diving deep into this lesson because I've seen, like, in my city, for example, arrestation of people of color every day for a week. And so even though we've talked in the past about, like, loving the system, I felt like it was actually time to feel into how to accept it truly. And so, yeah, I think that's the thing that started the healing for me. And as soon as I've accepted that this was my healing and that to transcend a situation, you have to fully love it, like even there, when logically it seems like, I should be against it or should dislike it. Then, like the situation started to present themselves to me to heal. And actually, like about 1 hour ago, I was presenting with something that I truly, truly don't like. And I would try to feel like what is it that I truly don't like about this situation in the past, and I would put boundaries with this person, for example, and I'm like, this doesn't work. Why does this not work? And I thought about our topic for today, and it was like, all right, I'm not truly accepting what is before me right now. Why don't I just drop down all these barriers and just feel and not be ashamed of how I felt about the situation and everything. And as I did, it was, unpleasant. And like on the outside, like nothing changed about the person, but I changed my views about the person. Not what they did wrong, but like more appreciating the situation and that I was loved and that for example, that I was not in harm's way, and also what they did right, and what they gave to me. Um, and so, yeah, I feel that's an example of how we have to love the system because, we could look at the bad cops all day and be outraged about a lot of things, but we could also look into what this gives us, like a freedom to be in a safe city, to live a life, a pretty calm life, um, to have a developed country. Um, yeah, I think for me that's what acceptance as a concept feels like today.
Yeah, I resonate a lot with that as well. And I've been moving through this myself, like this lesson of acceptance and what it truly means for me at the core. And I feel like it takes like a lot of like maturity, like to move through the resistance. But like we mentioned, like you really have to see the gift or like what it's giving you versus what is maybe being taken from you or what you feel like you're losing. And when you kind of look at it from that perspective and you shift your perspective, it helps to, yeah, it helps you to accept the lesson and the gift in the lesson. Because like what we were kind of touching on in the Discord chat around accepting our place as people of color in the system and like the history of people of color and how we were brought from our country of origin, and like just the bad history of it, right? How Black people specifically were brought from Africa to America in slave ships, and how, yeah, just like the bad blood around that. And like, that's hard. That's a hard pill to swallow. That's hard for anyone to accept. And so like, as I was sitting with that the other day, I was like, yeah, this does take a lot of maturity to see the gift or the lesson, and really take on like the healing from that, I guess. And like see that I do have a place, and my brothers and sisters do have a place in this country. And that there was a lesson here, and that this system that we're in now does serve us, and that we do have a place here, and that a lot of change has taken place, and that there was purpose. And that holding on to the anger and holding on to the resistance doesn't help. It only makes it worse, right? And that like acceptance of where we are now and choosing love is how we further transcend and make things better. And so, yeah, I kind of feel like I kind of just talked in circles, but that's kind of where I'm at with the acceptance piece. So yeah, just a lot of unpacking. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying, Gianna, as well. That's a lot of acceptance. Just finding my place in my world as well, and my acceptance part as well. And yeah, I must admit it's been a struggle for me. But what Granville said about surrendering into that feeling and just observing and looking at it, and that feels good, just to do that, not to fight, not to have any resistance, because that doesn't get you anywhere. So the peaceful state is much more preferable. That was beautiful what you shared. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think all of you've touched on quite significant components to this, even just this concept that is acceptance. And it's not a small piece of work. It's not a small feat. And so it's also something that at the end of the day where you can sit back and go, I don't like it, but I can accept that is showing up in my reality, and I can look at it as a place to go and unpack so that I heal me. It allows you to relax. It allows you to embody more of the energy of receiving, because you're getting something. You have a choice as to whether that something makes you better or worse. You have a choice whether to carry that negative energy or heal that negative energy, because the negative energy is not on the outside of you. Your reaction to what's happening on the outside of you is creating a lot of negative energy inside you. It's creating a lot of potential constriction. It's creating a lot of potential blockage in the flow of your life force. and just being able to sit back and look at it objectively from the perspective of what can I learn here allows relaxation. It allows peace to even just have a foothold, which is really what we want. We really are designed to be in peace and act out of a place of peace. But we forget that because there's so much happening, and all that distracts us from the truth at our core, that we are designed to be in peace and live in peace, and to operate from that place of peace. And something that kind of always stands out for me is there's power in your peace, because of the fact that if you are peaceful, you are much more able to make a choice as opposed to just reacting. And just knowing that you have the power to make a choice in that space is powerful in and of itself. But you can't do that if you're permanently distracted by things on the outside. If everything catches your attention, you probably don't catch your attention enough. And I know it sounds like a lofty ideal when you haven't been trained and you haven't taken journeys of healing the way we have taken. But it's not as big as that we cannot actually start to embody it in our lives. It's not so big that it overwhelms us as a concept because we don't get it. We do get it. We do get it. We always get it. The contrast helps us get it even better. And I think and that's also allowed me to appreciate contrast, because it shows me what I don't want. And so I can heal in that space and truly feel into what I do want. And if I'm vibrating at the level of what I do want, then God or the universe or source or spirit or any concept of how you would like to engage with God responds to you. Like we're not in the space of telling people that it is God or it's not God, and it's not the universe, and it's not this, and it's not that. We are in the space of your source is that higher power. We believe that it is God. And when you embody that you are a powerful co-creator in your reality, you realize you have a choice, and you realize that you have power. And you realize that in order for your reality to shift, you change your vibrational set point to align to what you do want, to align to what you do believe in. And so it's, there's a lot of space to be grateful for the people that teach us. There's space to be grateful to the people that help us look at things from different perspectives, and to understand that new perspective is not actually hurting us or challenging us. It's an opportunity to heal at a deeper level. And something that I learned a while ago in coaching training was that when you're in a state of learning, you cannot be in a state of fear or powerlessness, because it's a non-threatening environment. a learning space is generally a non-threatening environment. And so you cannot vibrate at the level of fear while you're learning, which is always a useful thing to have. It's always like that's a very useful tool when you can look for the learning in something, because it does allow you to release some of that negative energy.
I think it's really important that you describe all of these things, external things, as distractions. I think it helps with the change of perspective that Dion was talking about. And one thing that I see a lot when I am researching pictures for our memes every week is, in our culture, in Black culture specifically, I see this almost sense of duty to fight and to be outraged and to be angry. And I even saw like a picture of a girl holding a sign saying like being angry is I don't know how she said it, is a right or is a privilege. It's a privilege. And I was like, oh, that was the kind of thing that we wanted to see differentiated, like what is Black culture and what is actually just a means to be angry. And so one of the big things that I'm learning too this week is that why am I making life so hard, in a sense? And so I was like, do I want to make life hard by the sense of duty of being outraged or by distraction, notice? Or do I just want to be peaceful and learning and constantly opening and changing from within? And I'm learning that these two cannot possibly cohabit in the same person, because they don't have the same intentions.
Yeah, I like that. And I think it also speaks to a quote that Shaleia shared a few weeks ago, or possibly even last week, that if you are operating in fear, you can't operate in love. And I think it just perfectly speaks to that fear and love cannot cohabitate. They cannot coexist because they are in opposition to each other. And I like how you said it, Irene, that they can't cohabit. They can't cohabitate, because the fact of the matter is, actually then you're kind of almost struggling against yourself. It's like the struggle is not on the outside. The struggle is then even more on the inside. It's almost I'm going to use this expression, I'm not labeling anyone, but it's almost a bipolar way of living.
There's also this, it makes sense because, I mean, our societies have been built on systems that have been perfected and are still evolving from centuries and millennia. And being outraged is gonna give you unrest inside, but it's also gonna give you unrest outside. Like, system will grind you because you are not like cooperating with it. And so I see a lot of, my friends who like to take the streets and demonstrate. They say like, we cannot possibly cohabit with abusers, that's how they call the system. And so there's this inherent hatred of a part of yourself and of a part of your society that brought you here and that gives you a lot of gifts. In the anger, in the demonstrations. And I agree with what you said. I feel like sometimes it's contradictory because it's like taking the streets for something and going far into your anger. At the same time, sometimes you're proud of having this culture. You're proud of having this safe place, this cuisine, this music, this, and I've seen that in like the same persons, that anger and also that pride. And so I'm like, it's got to imbalance you and tear you apart from the inside. So it's doing worse things to you than the things that you are actually wanting and desiring to change. So it's just showing that it's not, a healthy way to try and change.
Yeah, I like that you brought up that energy of imbalance, because I feel like one of the things that we tend to overlook is that we're very intuitive beings, and our bodies are very intuitive. They respond and store our feelings. And so feelings of anxiety and stress and anger aren't healthy spaces for your body. Your body is meant to be in balance. It's meant to be in balance. It's how we were designed. So the idea of all of the raging against the system, for lack of a better expression, kind of feels to me like putting yourself almost in a tumble dryer and literally, just, or a washing machine, you just like literally repeating that cycle all the time. And it doesn't seem to be change. And so like, I love that we have the tools inside of Jeff and Shaleia's teachings and in the teachings of union to do that healing, because it does return you to balance with yourself. And it's very counterintuitive not to want to be healthy. And I feel like sometimes we don't, until you know, you don't know. So you don't know that there's this ill health vibration until you start actually choosing to heal. And then when you do start choosing to heal, you realize that actually, as I heal a piece, my body even responds differently. My energy responds differently. Things that come into my energy field change because I am no longer a vibrational match to the things that are out of alignment with love. They're out of alignment with who I am. And I feel like that's the energy of just walking back into acceptance, is that if I am comfortable with who I am, I very easily start to be able to see the things that are not in alignment with me. And so I very easily start to be able to heal them more easily because they show up so much faster. Like it's literally like spotting the red balloon in 100 blue balloons. You can't not see it. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And I think that's kind of the journey. It's like once you know how to start healing, you can't unknow it. But once you also know that there is a purpose to things in life, you can't unknow that there's a purpose to things in life. You can't unknow that you're having a relationship with life. And let's be honest, I've never experienced anybody who's appreciated pushing against life all the time. Like they don't realize sometimes that they're doing it, but when they do realize, they just realize how much of an energy expense that was. How much of a leak of that life force that was. And I feel like that energy of resistance speaks to me of an energy leak. Because resistance requires a lot of energy and a lot of force all the time. And if my life force is going into resistance, it can't really go into creating my heaven on earth. It can't really go into living in my heaven on earth. It can't go into living in my peace and accepting my peace. Because there's a misalignment. And you can't use the same lot of energy for everything. You expend energy in places, and that energy is expended. But the whole point of it is to replenish that energy. And I feel like that replenishment of the energy is the healing piece. That's where you actually replenish your energy, in healing. And that's why it's like, for me, just even the way our topic is structured, that actually acceptance is a key to healing. And I would much rather heal than not heal.
Yeah, I love that we're talking about this. And yeah, it definitely feels like anger. I can definitely see how like anger has been misconstrued as like a cultural like pillar of people of color, or like a part of the culture, when like you said, Granville, it's just a big energy leak, and it doesn't help us at all. But I can't help but think about how, like, as we've been unpacking this, it does make me think about in history how, like, when Yureen brought up the point about the image of the girl holding up, I think you said she was holding up like a picket sign, and she was saying like anger is like a privilege or something like that. A crazy statement. But if you kind of think about, like, why would someone want to say something like that, and what would be, like, if you kind of put yourself in their shoes, and it just makes me think, like, when we are fighting for certain rights, or we think about civil rights and we think about history, it does kind of seem like more has taken place, and more like, you get the government's attention faster through acts of anger. That's just what it looks like on the outside. Like outside looking in. Through, if you think about like Martin Luther King versus Malcolm X, Martin Luther King had the peaceful protest, Malcolm X had the more aggressive approach. And I don't know, just like when you do have like those aggressive protests, that does seem to be what gets people's attention. And so, I mean, I feel like there's something there, like when you express your anger, like maybe there's something there in consciousness that says the anger is what holds the power, when, like we've been saying, it's actually our peace that holds the power. And so, you know, I feel like there's definitely, you know, something there to look at. I don't know. I mean, what are you guys' thoughts?
I think to an extent it gets results. And obviously, it's made history, and it's important to recognize what has built the civil rights movements and the laws that we get to have today, and the freedoms and liberties. But you know, it's like everything stemming from separation. Like, people choose separation. We choose separation as human beings because we think that we are getting something from it. It's exactly like victimhood is a feeling that you are getting more attention, more love through it. And so it's not about like judging people for being angry. It's more like, actually, there's a better way to do it. And now we know, and we're ready to heal in this place and extend that better way. And that better way gets you more results faster. And also, it's an economy of your energy. So, yeah, I think the only thing like we can say right now, as we are almost in 2022, is that we can have compassion for people or even us in past lifetimes, because we didn't know how being angry and fighting all the time stemmed of powerlessness and energy leaks. And we can be grateful that we are here today because of what other people did. And but like, you know, seeing the good and the change in what they did is not, you know, the contrary of like changing and evolving, because that's what God teaches us. It's like He's ever evolving and also always the same. And so when something is not true anymore, it's important to recognize that, okay, this era, you did your time, you brought us here, thank you. And now we can step into something new. So it's definitely not a judgment of the amazing things that the civil rights movement and Black Lives Matter has brought us, like the big people that have made us move forward as people of color, because we would not have been having this discussion in that way if they weren't there. But yeah, that's my take on it. I don't know how Catherine and Granville feel about it.
Yeah, I agree with the peaceful movement, I guess you can say, the approach rather than the anger and resistance. And just seeing that the more peace that we keep bringing to the world, we will start seeing more awareness from God, and that will bring us even more peace. And that's when I see that healing will actually take effect. So peace is the answer. A bit corny, but yeah. So I can see that, yeah.
Yeah, so I think you guys have all touched on some very important things, and like the one thing that stands out for me is definitely that the anger served a purpose. It did. And I can't remember if it was in a TFAS class or in one of our live classes with Jeff. But you know, you have to also you need to meet people where they live, right? And so you need to meet situations where they are. And at the time when all of that energy required to be fueled so significantly, it was fueled by anger. And there are still instances where anger needs to fuel certain things. And it's okay. But it's not okay for it to take up residence. Like I have myself in certain instances gone to that place of anger and reacted out of that place of anger and accomplished something by using that component that was in my toolkit. It was a tool. It was a tool that I used to achieve something. So yes, it's definitely served a purpose. Does it always serve a purpose? I don't believe so. What I believe is that your choice serves a purpose, and then you can choose. Do I go to level 10 with you, or do I try to get you to level 1 with me? Because you need to be behaviorally flexible. And unfortunately, sometimes anger is a tool in your behavioral toolkit. It works. And it's okay to not judge yourself or anybody else unless they're always operating in that way, unless they live there. Like I have had to meet certain people in the place where they live in anger for them to pay attention. But I choose not to live in that way. That is not my choice of lifestyle. And I think it's, like it's something like almost the quote that stands out is like, sometimes you got to meet an asshole where they live, And I know, I know that there's going to be a lot of people that would feel like, well, is that really the best thing? But sometimes it is. But the thing that stands out for me is that energy of behavioral flexibility. In your behavioral flexibility, you have a choice. And that's actually where the power sits. The power doesn't sit in using the tool. The power sits in your choice. But you need to be in peace to be able to make a choice. Because if you permanently just reacting, are you really choosing? Is the question I would ask anybody. If you're permanently just reacting, are you actively and actually choosing? Because your choice is where your power lies. The follow through in terms of whatever behavior you choose to employ is the next step. But you kind of have to be in peace to be able to make a choice, to exercise the power of your choice. And I think that that's kind of the thing, that one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is that you cannot use the power of your choice if you're not even aware that you have the power to choose. But in order for you to be aware of the fact that you have the power to choose, you kind of have to be at peace. You have to be in peace to be able to exercise your right to choose.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's what I was getting at, like that the anger serves its purpose and that it has its place and its time. But like you said, Granville, like it really comes down to choice. And in order to have a choice, like you have to be in a state of peace. Otherwise, you're just reacting. And the anger is really just a reaction. But like Eurene's point, like we're evolving, right? And the anger served its purpose at one point in our evolution. And now as we're healing consciousness, now we can step into a greater place of peace. And so it's really nice to see the evolution of our consciousness and how we're moving through this. And yeah, like it feels good to watch the progress and but yeah, to see like we do have to be in that state of peace in order to, I think that's a really great point. Like you have to kind of take a step back, assess the situation, come at it from a state of peace before you can choose how you want to respond instead of just reacting from anger. So yeah, it's a lot of great lessons there. But I did just want to kind of like bring up how I was thinking, like, how did the anger serve us back then, or if it even did? And to your point, like it served us in the moment, and now we're evolving and we're in a greater in a different space now. So peace is where we're at now. So yeah, that feels good.
Yeah, and I think, and that the one thing that kind of just allows me to also surrender into what's happening is that I don't feel responsible for actually changing it. I feel responsible for contributing to the change. Like it's a whole different perspective because I only have a piece and the people around me have a piece. And so I bring my piece. And in me bringing my piece, it's an invitation to everybody else to bring their piece. And I think that's the kind of thing that we also need to remember as we unpack these things, is that our choice to heal in this space is an invitation. It's still an invitation to everybody else to choose to heal along with us. And we are actually achieving it even just in having this conversation. We achieve it every time we choose to do a mirror exercise about something that bothers us. We are inviting people, we are inviting consciousness into the choice to heal. And again, they have the choice to accept it or not, but we are actually inviting consciousness into the choice to heal.
It's a beautiful thing about like humanism is that we're here to, and I think that's one of the important tasks that we have. We're here to extend that choice, to let people know that they have that choice. As Jeff and Shaleia let us know that we have a choice, and where we felt powerless, and why. Because like I think like 2 years ago I wouldn't even have expected to see that, you know, it's my ancestral DNA that makes me think that way, like makes me think that I'm even remotely outside of the system. And I would have said to you, like, no, I feel okay. I'm in the system, and people and racism are the problem. But yeah, it's just a mirror. And it was good to see that it's just a mirror. It makes it easier when you remove that anger. And yeah, I definitely feel like peace is freedom, peace is having a choice. Because like, do you remember, guys, when I said like on my native island there was like a lot of tension at the moment. People were angry and taking the streets and everything. And brought the government's attention. And so one of the French ministers, came to the island to have peaceful conversation. And he said, like, I want to have conversations and negotiations. And people were actually went into the meeting, just wanted to spew out their anger and, brandish people as victims instead of taking responsibility for like, the violence that had happened. I think they even asked the minister not to have criminal retribution for the people that put fire to the roofs and the cars and everything. And the minister stayed like 10 minutes and went to the other French island because it was like, nope. We said it was a conversation and a negotiation. I'm not going to stand here and give criminal freedom to people. That doesn't make sense. And people were outraged about it. So it was like through and through, they did not make a choice until they felt robbed of their choices. Even though, yeah, I think if they saw that they had the ability to make a choice and it stemmed from peace, the situation would have been different. But it's also a lesson in contrast, as Gwen would say. So yeah.
I also find it very interesting that the invitation was extended for a peaceful conversation and that the minister honored that vibration. Like, okay, so you're not doing it, okay, bye. And I feel like that's something that we also start to embody more as we start to heal more, is that I am vibrating here. I'd really love for you to meet me here. I'm inviting you to meet me here, but I will honor your choice and honor my own choice. And so if you don't meet me here, I'm going to honor your choice by leaving. It's such a, it feels very powerful without exerting force.
That's the funny thing about this government. And I think a lot of people don't like it because it sends back the energy that they extended, is that they are considered and described as very ruthless. But when you give like voice to the president and the minister, you actually hear, or at least I hear, like, oh, this is very down to earth and logical and precise and is actually not wrong. And I was quite sad that throughout the president's main mandates, like things didn't turn out good on the promises that he had before his presidency. But I'm starting to realize that maybe sometimes it was because it was actually honoring his boundary, and that he had a very good one. It was very powerful in his calmness, to the point that maybe it scared people, saying that it was like maybe a sociopath or a tyrant. But no, it was just extending his boundary. I think he would have desired to change a lot more things, but he's also honoring where people are open to changing them and to having discussions. So yeah, I see again a whole change of perspective given from seeing this from a place of peace.
No, like, and I think it's actually true leadership where you honor your boundaries and you honor your choice and you choose to honor somebody else's choice. It starts to feel like an invitation into healthy relationships. It's something that probably will start to change the blueprint of what relationships actually are and what we've been taught they should be. And it's probably something that will allow us to transcend the patterns of unhealthy relationships at a faster pace. But it does require to honor your vibration. It requires you to honor your new choice. It's not just the simplicity of making the choice. It's the simplicity of taking that next step, that action step, follow through to honor that new choice. Okay, so we're almost at our hour. Just checking in with everybody. Any last thoughts, concluding statements before we say good day, good evening, good night for today? Cool. So in that case, I'm going to say thank you to everybody. I think I feel like this has been quite a powerful conversation, and I feel like, it's just kind of solidifies the concept a little bit more, and the concept of acceptance a little bit more. And sometimes it's not about the profound complex thing, it's about the sophistication in the simplicity. So I think that this is quite cool in that it really did delve into it at a deep level, but without complicating the concept, which is really cool to do, because it just, it settles the energy, clarifies it more. And I feel like our choice to heal again is just an invitation to everybody to join us there. And our action step is to honor that we are choosing to heal, and we continue to do so. So I want to say thank you to everybody for joining us. I want to say thank you to this team for the conversation. And we look forward to seeing everybody soon for another conversation in our series on why Black Lives Matter. We'd also like to invite everybody to like and subscribe to our Church of Union YouTube channel, where you will find all our previous conversations in this series and any other live conversations that ever happened in the Unionism Spiritual Discussion Group on Facebook. And we look forward to seeing you soon again. So thank you, everybody. Chat to you soon. Bye-bye.